Thank God this incredible HFY masterpiece found you today. Witness the legend starting now. The Krell Dominion had ruled the outer spiral arms for 3,000 cycles, which was impressive until you realized they'd spent 2,900 of those cycles arguing about proper plasma rifle etiquette. Such was the nature of advanced civilization music. In the galaxy, everyone had conquered physics, mortality, and interstellar travel, but nobody could agree on whether energy weapons should be charged to stun or kill at formal gatherings. The galaxy operated on a simple principle that every species' music understood from the moment they achieved faster than light travel. Might makes right, and might comes from superior technology. Biological evolution was considered quaint music's starting point, something you grew out of like a larval stage or a regrettable fashion choice. The moment a species figured out how to replace flesh with duralloy, neurons with quantum processors, and frail organic chemistry with elegant machinery, they did so without hesitation. The Confederation of Sentient Species Music maintained detailed rankings of every civilization based on their military capability, technological sophistication, and most importantly, how thoroughly they'd abandoned their embarrassing biological origins. At the top sat the Nixari collective, beings who'd uploaded their consciousness into crystalline matrices, powered by miniature stars piloting bodies that could reconfigure themselves. At the molecular level, they looked down on everyone else with the smug superiority of people who'd literally transcended having opinions. Music about lunch. At the bottom, receiving the galactic equivalent of participation music, trophies, and pitying head pats, sat humanity. Humans had arrived on the galactic stage approximately 40 cycles ago with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for tourists who'd taken music a wrong turn and ended up somewhere they definitely shouldn't be. They'd figured out music faster than light travel through what the galaxy's scientific community could only describe as aggressive stubbornness and mathematical blasphemy, then promptly introduced themselves to the Confederation by accidentally ramming a Krell warship during their first diplomatic mission. The incident had set the tone for humanity's entire galactic reputation. What made humans the subject of universal mockery wasn't their technological backwardness, music, though that certainly didn't help. The Krell had weapons that could crack planets. Humans still used chemical propellants that made loud noises and threw metal really fast. The Xanthari had replaced their bodies with adaptive biomechanical frames. And GT, music. And GT, that could survive in hard vacuum. Humans wore pressurized suits that looked like they'd been designed music by committee and sewn together by optimistic amateurs. No, what really made humanity the galaxy's favorite music punchline was their stubborn, almost aggressive refusal to upgrade. Every species' music that achieved space travel immediately began the process of enhancing themselves. The Dravik had replaced their limbs with modular weapon systems. The Shorath had augmented their nervous systems with combat music prediction algorithms. Even the peaceful Ilari had gotten cybernetic enhancements, though theirs were mostly for artistic purposes and really excellent eyesight for appreciating music sunsets. Humans showed up with original equipment. Biology enacted like that was perfectly fine. They had no built-in weapons, no subdermal armor plating, no neural accelerators or reflex boosters. They were, as the Krell ambassador had eloquently put it during a particularly memorable Confederation session, walking meat sacks held together by stubbornness, music, and delusion. The comment had made every news feed in the galaxy. Humans displaying either remarkable dignity or profound stupidity, music had simply shrugged and continued being aggressively biological, music. This attitude had earned them a special kind of contempt in a galaxy where every species' music measured their worth by how thoroughly they'd militarized and mechanized themselves. Humans were the equivalent of showing up to a war in your pajamas, harmless, ridiculous, and not worth taking seriously. Which brought us to the contested trials. The trials were the Confederation's solution to territorial disputes, trade disagreements, and general interspecies tensions that would otherwise result in messy, economy-disrupting wars. Instead of fleets of warships reducing entire systems to radioactive rubble, species could settle their differences through single combat in designated arenas scattered across neutral space. It was civilized, it was efficient, it was also incredibly violent. But the galaxy had decided that some violence was acceptable, as long as it happened in designated locations with proper advertising revenue. The trials took place in massive orbital arenas, each one a technological marvel, capable of reconfiguring its internal environment to suit any combat scenario. Gravity could be adjusted, atmospheres could be customized, terrain could shift from volcanic hellscapes to frozen tundras at the press music of a button. Millions watched via neural link broadcasts, placing bets through quantum encrypted channels, while commentators provided music, running analysis in 7,000 languages simultaneously. Champions represented music, their species honor, their civilization's superiority, and occasionally their government's foreign policy objectives. These warriors' music were the pinnacle of their respective species' capabilities. Bodies upgraded music with the finest military hardware, minds enhanced with tactical processing suites, armed with weapons that made physics professors weep. Losing in the trials was considered music profound embarrassment. Losing badly could affect trade agreements, territorial claims, and your species' music ranking in the Confederation's complex social hierarchy. Humans had competed in the trials, and GT music, and GT exactly 3 times. They'd lost 3 times. Not close losses either. Humiliating, brutal music, defeats that had generated memes, comedy sketches, and at EO Music, least one opera that played to sold-out audiences across the Krell Dominion. The human representatives had been brave, certainly, and showed admirable resilience in the face of overwhelming force, which was a polite way of saying music. They got comprehensively destroyed by opponents who barely broke a sweat. The betting pools didn't even accept wagers on human victories anymore. The odds were considered too depressing. So when the Confederation received notification that humanity was entering a champion in the upcoming trials, the galaxy's reaction could be summarized as, "Oh, this should be hilarious." The trials were being held at the Crucible, an ancient arena orbiting a neutron star. In the Kelvas system, the Crucible had hosted over 10,000 official matches and had never once suffered a mechanical failure, which was impressive considering the amount of energy weapons fire it absorbed on a regular basis. Its internal space could comfortably hold 50,000 spectators, though attendance for this particular match was expected to be lower. Nobody wanted to watch humans lose. Again, well, nobody except music, the people, who found it funny, which admittedly was most of the galaxy. The arena filled slowly over the course of several hours. Dravic warriors occupied the upper sections, their mechanical limbs gleaming under the carefully calibrated music lighting. Krell dignitaries sat in their private boxes already drinking music and making jokes at humanity's expense. Xanthari spectators' music interfaced directly with the arena's sensory network, experiencing the space through data music streams rather than merely watching it. The betting pools opened 3 hours before the match. Human victory sat at odds of approximately 8,000 to 1, which was actually generous considering their track record. Most of the serious money went toward betting on how quickly the human music would lose. With the over-under set at 90 seconds, the human representative arrived with no fanfare, no entrance music, no light show, no projected holograms music or atmospheric effects. She simply walked through the fighters' entrance into the preparation chamber, and the camera's music caught her almost by accident. She was female, which the galaxy music noted with mild interest. Human gender distinctions were considered quaint but meaningless. Most species had either abandoned music, sexual dimorphism entirely, or had so many genders that keeping track required specialized music database software. She stood approximately 5 ft9 in tall, which translated to roughly average human height and was considered almost comically small by galactic standards. Her build was athletic in the way humans measured such things, with visible muscle definition that organic music species recognized and cybernetic species found adorably primitive. She wore simple clothing, flexible pants, a fitted shirt, and boots designed for mobility rather than protection. Music. No armor, no visible weapons, no cybernetic enhancements breaking the skin surface, no energy music, field generators, no plasma projectors, nothing. Her hands were empty. Her skin was brown, her hair darkened, pulled back functionally. Her expression was calm, almost bored, like someone waiting for a transportation connection rather than preparing music for potentially lethal combat. The commentators noticed her first. And here we have humanity's champion, said Rick 7, a Nexari consciousness music, inhabiting a commentary platform, their voice resonating through 17 different frequency bands music. Simultaneously, I'm accessing her registration data now and I'm seeing absolutely nothing. Interesting music. No augmentation profile, no weapons. Manifest, no specialized training. Certifications. Did humans send the wrong person? Perhaps this is a cultural gesture, offered Kilrith, a Shoreth analyst, whose 6 eyes music blinked in sequential patterns. Some species perform ritual humiliation as bonding exercises. Maybe humans are attempting to demonstrate humility by getting their representative killed. I've studied humans. Their social music behaviors rarely make sense. The camera feeds focused on the human, and across the galaxy, millions of viewers tuned in specifically to see what fresh humiliation humanity music had prepared. Social media networks lit up with commentary, 98% of it variations on the same theme. This was going to be a massacre. The human seemed unaware of the attention, or more likely completely unbothered by it. She stretched casually, music rolling her shoulders and cracking her knuckles in a gesture that organic species recognized as preparing for physical activity and cybernetic species found mystifying. Then the champion's entrance opened on the opposite side of the arena. Vexthor the Undefeated emerged too. Thunderous applause. He stood 9 ft tall, and every inch of that height was deliberate engineering. His species, the Corvini, were already large by galactic standards, but Vexthor had enhanced himself far beyond biological baseline. His arms had been replaced with military-grade combat prosthetics, capable of crushing duralloy like soft clay. His legs were hydraulic masterpieces. Music that could launch him 50 ft vertically, or let him sprint at speeds that turned him into a flesh and metal blur. His torso was more machine than organic, layered with armor plating that could deflect small arms fire and shrug off energy blasts. His spine had been music reinforced with a power distribution network that fed his various augmentations. His skull housed a combat music computer that processed tactical information faster than most species could think. He was armed extensively. Music plasma projectors were integrated into his forearms, capable of firing sustained beams that could melt music through starship hulls. His shoulders mounted micro-missile launchers with sophisticated targeting systems. His hands could deploy monomolecular blades that vibrated at frequencies. Music designed to slice through molecular bonds. His eyes had been replaced with targeting arrays that saw in 17 spectrums simultaneously. He was, by any reasonable measure, a walking weapon platform. He was also undefeated in 47 consecutive matches. Vexthor had broken champions from a dozen species. He'd humiliated warriors who'd spent centuries perfecting their combat music abilities. He'd turned professional fighters into medical emergencies with casual efficiency. The Corvini hegemony paid him in his own weight in precious metals after every victory, and he was rapidly music becoming too expensive to employ. He enjoyed his music work tremendously. Vexthor strode to the center of the arena, his footsteps making the reinforced floor plates ring like warning bells. The crowd's cheering intensified. He raised his arms in acknowledgement, and the plasma projectors glowed with barely contained energy. The human walked to her designated starting position with the same casual energy she'd shown earlier, like this was a mild inconvenience rather than potential death. The arena's central platform rose, carrying the Arbiter, an AI construct that refereed all official matches. Its voice resonated through the space, translated simultaneously. And GT music, and GT into every known language. This match is sanctioned by the Confederation of Sentient Species. Music Victory is achieved through opponent. Incapacitation, surrender, or death. Medical intervention music is available. May both representatives bring honor to their species. Standard preamble. The crowd barely listened. Vexther Music was staring at the human with visible contempt. His targeting systems had already scanned her, providing detailed analysis. That confirmed what his eyes told him. She had nothing. No weapons, no enhancements, no defensive systems. She was as baseline as biology could get. He decided to make this entertaining. Human. His voice boomed music across the arena, amplified by his internal systems. I am told your music species has courage. I see before me no evidence of this claim. The human music didn't respond, just stood relaxed with her hands at her sides. You come before the galaxy with empty music hands. Vexther continued, playing to the crowd. Now, you bring no music, weapons to face me. No augmentations, no courage. Tell me, do all humans have a death wish, or are you simply stupid? The crowd laughed. It was the kind of music, laughter that happened when the bully was performing. And everyone knew the punchline was coming. I have destroyed champions who carried plasma lances, Vexther said, starting to circle. His mechanical legs made precise, measured sounds against the floor. I have broken warriors enhanced with combat music, algorithms that could predict my every move. I have defeated enemies who could regenerate from catastrophic music damage. And you bring meat and bone. This is not combat. This is extermination. Still nothing from the human. She tracked his movement with her eyes, but otherwise remained perfectly still. Perhaps this is a joke, Vexther suggested. Perhaps humanity has finally accepted their place as the galaxy's entertainment. You're here to die for our amusement. Yeah, to demonstrate that even the weakest species can produce someone willing to be humiliated for the cameras. The human spoke for the first time, her voice carrying clearly despite lacking music, any electronic amplification. You talk a lot. The simplicity of the statement caught Vexther off guard for exactly half music a second. Then he laughed, a deep booming sound that his audio systems projected throughout the arena. Music. Defiance. How refreshing. He stopped circling and faced her directly. Music. Very well, human. I will make this quick. When I am finished, they will need to identify your remains through genetic sequencing. Your empty hands will accomplish nothing. Your primitive biology will fail you. And the galaxy will remember that humanity should never have left music their dirt world. That's a lot of words to say. You're scared. The crowd went silent. Vexther's combat computer music immediately flagged this as a psychological tactic, an attempt to provoke emotional response and create tactical openings. He dismissed the warning. This wasn't strategy. This was desperation. Scared. He actually laughed again. Of you. You've been talking for 3 minutes. The human observed calmly. Most fights are over in 3 minutes. You're stalling. I am giving the audience their money's worth. Sure. The arbiter's voice cut through the tension. Combatants ready. Match begins in 10 seconds. Vexthor activated his weapon systems. Plasma projectors music hummed to life. Targeting arrays locked on. His combat music computer ran final calculations and prepared firing. Solutions. He had 17 different ways to end this fight music instantly, and he was genuinely uncertain which would be most impressive. The human rolled her shoulders once more and raised her hands, her empty, unenhanced completely. Biological hands. 5 seconds, the arbiter announced. Your hands are empty. Vexthor music said, unable to resist. One final taunt. What do you think you will accomplish with empty hands? The human smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Guess you'll find out. 1. Begin. Vexthor opened with overwhelming force, exactly as his combat computer recommended. He launched himself forward with his enhanced legs, and GT music, and GT, covering 15 FT in a single explosive movement while simultaneously firing. His plasma projectors. The twin beams carved through music. The air where the human had been standing had been. She wasn't there anymore. Vexthor's targeting music systems screamed alerts. His combat computer running at processing speeds that operated in microseconds struggled to track movement that shouldn't have been possible. The human had moved 6 FT laterally in the time it took his plasma to cross the distance to her previous music position. No species moved that fast without enhancements, not without reflex boosters, music, without neural accelerators, without something mechanical assisting. She just moved. Vexthor music recalculated and fired. Again, adjusting for her new position. And GT music. And GT and predicted trajectory. The plasma beam stout with lethal music precision. She ducked under them, her body bending at angles his combat computer flagged as. And GT music. And GT, improbable but not impossible for human flexibility parameters. He was faster. He knew he was music faster. His systems could process and react in time frames that organic neurology couldn't match. So why wasn't he hitting her? The crowd's noise had changed. The laughter had stopped. Music. The dismissive commentary had trailed off into confused music, silence. This wasn't how these fights went. Humans were supposed to be slow, clumsy, limited music by their primitive biology. This human moved like physics had agreed to give her personal exemptions, music. Vexthor adjusted tactics. He triggered his micro-missile launchers, filling the air with 12 self-guiding projectiles that would track her movements and adjust trajectory mid-flight. Impossible to dodge. The explosions alone would be lethal. The human ran, not away, toward him. She covered the distance between them faster than his combat computer had projected, moving in ways that seemed random, but somehow put her exactly where his missiles couldn't track without hitting each other. She ducked, rolled, and redirected her momentum with movements that looked effortless. 11 missiles music detonated against each other in a chain reaction that rattled the arena's shields. The 12th missile she grabbed out of the air as it passed her, redirecting its trajectory with a twisting motion that sent it spiraling into the arena ceiling, where it exploded harmlessly. She just caught a missile. With her hand, her unenhanced, biological empty hand. Vexter's combat computer provided. Updated threat assessment, extreme. Danger. He deployed his monomolecular blades and swung with force calculated to bisect armored targets. The blades hummed through the air at speeds that created music, visible distortion. The human moved inside his reach, closer. Then his combat music, programming. Recommended for blade engagement. His swing missed by inches. She was too close now. Inside the optimal range music for his primary weapons. Perfect position for his secondary systems. He triggered the energy emitters in his music chest plate designed to discharge lethal voltage into opponents who attempted close combat. Enough electricity to stop organic hearts and fry neural tissue. The human's hand hit his chest plate. Fraction of a second before the discharge music. Hit wasn't the right word. Struck, impacted, connected with force that his armor sensors measured and his combat computer immediately flagged as impossible. The chest plate cracked. Not scratched, not dented, cracked. Military-grade armor designed to withstand anti-vehicle weapons developed. Structural fractures from a punch. An unenhanced biological human punch. The electrical discharge fired, grounding harmlessly through the fractured plating instead of into the target. Vexter's combat computer was now screaming alerts and priority sequences that bordered on panic if combat AI could panic. He swung again with his blade, faster. This time, predictive algorithms running. Scenarios measured in microseconds. She couldn't dodge. The physics didn't allow it. She caught his wrist, her fingers closed around the articulated joint of his combat prosthetic, music, and she squeezed. The sound of crumpling metal echoed through the suddenly silent arena. His wrist, designed to exert crushing force and resist equivalent pressure, deformed music like cheap aluminum. Hydraulic fluid sprayed from ruptured lines. The monomolecular blade deactivated. Music. As power coupling severed, Vexter pulled back, his combat computer finally providing useful tactical advice. Retreat and reassess. The human didn't let him retreat. She moved with him, staying inside his reach, making his size and weapon systems disadvantages music rather than assets. Her movements were precise, efficient, and absolutely terrifying in music. Their effectiveness. She hit him in the side. Not a wild swing. A calculated strike to a specific point, where his organic tissue music met mechanical augmentation, a place where armor plating was thinner, to allow for flexibility. Something inside Vexter broke with an audible crack. Pain receptors which he'd assumed he'd properly calibrated music to ignore suddenly informed him that several of his biological ribs had fractured. Not cracked. Fractured. Completely. He tried to grab her with his undamaged arm, fingers designed music to crush starship hull plates, reaching for her throat. She stepped into the grab, which violated every combat protocol his computer knew. You didn't step into grabs. You retreated, you dodged. You created distance. She used his momentum against him. Some kind of music, leverage technique that his database was desperately trying to classify. His arm music, his very expensive military-grade combat prosthetic arm, ended up twisted music behind his own, back at an angle that stressed the connection points. Then she kicked him. His legs, his powerful hydraulic legs, that could launch him and support tons of weight, buckled. She'd struck the knee joint with surgical precision, and something in the hydraulic system failed. Catastrophically, music. Vexter went down, which had never happened in 47 matches. The crowd was absolutely silent now. Millions of viewers across the galaxy watched in stunned music, disbelief as the undefeated champion crashed to the arena floor with a sound like a small vehicle accident. His combat music, computer provided. Final assessment. Immediate surrender recommended. He ignored it. His pride, the organic part of music. Him that no amount of augmentation could replace. Refused to accept this. He triggered his plasma projectors. Again, point-blank range, impossible to miss. The human moved. She didn't just dodge. She grabbed his arm, the one with the plasma projector music, and redirected it. The beam carved a molten line across the arena floor, missing her by controlled inches. Then she music twisted his arm, and the plasma projector, still firing, pointed directly music at his other shoulder. His own weapon carved through his own augmentation in a spray of molten metal and burning synthetic tissue. The smell was terrible. She released his arm and stepped back, finally giving music him space. Vexter lay on the arena floor, his left arm destroyed by his own weapon, his right arm music twisted and damaged, his ribs broken, one leg hydraulics failed, and GT music, and GT, his chest armor cracked. His combat computer was providing damage. Assessments music that would have been humorous if they weren't so catastrophic. The human stood over him, breathing slightly harder than when the music match started, but otherwise completely undamaged. Her hands still empty, and GT music, and GT still unenhanced, hung at her sides. Your hands. Vexter managed, his voice system still functioning, music despite everything else failing. Empty hands. Yeah. And GT music. And GT, the human said. That's kind of the point. The arbiter's voice resonated through the arena. Match concluded, victory human. Representative. The silence stretched for exactly 3 seconds. Then the arena exploded with noise. Not cheering. Not really. Confusion, shock, disbelief, and the beginning of understanding. Commentators scrambled to provide analysis of what everyone had just witnessed. Slow-motion replays ran immediately, showing the human's movements frame by frame. The betting pools imploded spectacularly. 8,000 to 1 odds paying out broke several gambling operations instantly. Medical drones descended to retrieve Vexter, who lay staring at the arena ceiling, while his combat computer ran diagnostic loops and found nothing but bad news. Music. The human walked to the exit still calm, still unbothered. Brick 7, the Nixari commentator, managed to find their voice first. What did we just witness? A fight, Kilrith said slowly. We just witnessed what a fight looks like when humans participate. But she had no weapons, no augmentations, nothing. She had biology. Another commentator offered original equipment, biology, music. The replays were being analyzed by every military database in the Confederation. The humans' movements were being studied. Music by combat specialists who had dedicated centuries to understanding warfare. And slowly, reluctantly, the galaxy began to comprehend something they'd somehow missed. Humans had evolved as persistence, music predators on a death world. Their biology, their supposedly primitive, original equipment biology, was the result of millions of years of natural selection in an environment that actively tried music to kill anything living on it. Their bone density, their muscle fiber composition, their neural processing music, speed for physical reactions, their kinesthetic awareness, their ability to track three-dimensional motion and calculate trajectory, their skeletal structure designed around impact distribution, their cardiovascular system capable of sustaining extreme physical exertion. None of it music was primitive. It was optimized. They didn't need augmentation because evolution had already performed millions of years of violent trial and error. They didn't need weapons integrated into their bodies because they'd already figured out that flexibility and adaptability were more valuable than specialized hardware. Their empty hands weren't a weakness. They were a choice. A Dravic analyst appeared on the commentary feed, his mechanical appendages gesturing at data displays. Humans' average bone density is approximately twice that of species considered galactic baseline. Their muscle tissue has unique properties that allow for explosive music, power generation. Their nervous system, while slower than augmented systems in processing speed, has reaction time specifically optimized. Music for physical combat that evolved through continuous threat response. Their natural weapons, music, Kilrith said quietly. Not weapons. Another voice corrected. Survivors. They survived their home world, which by any reasonable measure should have killed their entire species during development. Music. They survived long enough to develop intelligence, society, and technology, while being physically music capable of killing most megafauna on their planet with their bare hands. With their empty hands. Brick 7 added, finally understanding music, the irony. The human representative had reached the exit. A reporter drone intercepted her, projecting questions music in standard Confederation speech. How did you defeat music, Vexthor? Without any augmentations. The human looked at the drone with music, mild amusement. Why would I need augmentations? But you had no weapons. She held up her hands, flexing her fingers. These are weapons. About 14 bones per hand, connected to muscles that evolved specifically for precise manipulation and impact delivery. My skeleton is designed around shock, absorption, and force distribution. My nervous system can calculate trajectory and music timing faster than most species' combat computers for physical actions. I'm a persistence music predator that evolved to chase prey until it died from exhaustion, then kill it with my bare hands if necessary. She shrugged. You all seem to think augmentation makes you stronger. Sometimes it just makes you depend on technology instead of ability. Vexthor was piloting a weapon platform. I was music just fighting. Will humanity send more representatives to the trials? Probably. Depends if music people keep challenging us to fist fights. Do you have a message for the galaxy? The human thought about it for a moment, then smiled that same unsettling smile. From before the match, empty hands built music, everything we have. Empty hands built our cities, our ships, our civilization. We didn't music, augment them because they work fine as is. If you want to cover yours with weapons and music, armor, and forget what they can actually do, that's your choice. But don't mistake our preference for biological music, baseline as weakness. We chose to stay human. We chose to remember what we're capable of music without external help. She paused at the exit. Oh, and tell people the betting odds were insulting. 8,000 to 1. I was honestly offended. Then she left, leaving the music galaxy to process what had just happened. The Confederation's military analysts would spend the next several cycles completely music, revising their assessment of human capabilities. The betting pool's music would institute new restrictions on matches involving human representatives. Vexler music would eventually recover, though his career as an undefeated champion had ended rather definitively, and humanity's ranking in the Confederation's complex social hierarchy would be adjusted music upward significantly, with a new notation added to their species music profile. Approach with caution. Augmentation assessment misleading. Natural capabilities exceed initial parameters. Or as one music, Krell diplomat summarized more succinctly in an internal memo. The humans were scary the whole time, and we just music didn't notice because they don't look scary. Update all threat assessments accordingly. Also stop mocking them. Turns out music, they don't like that. The galaxy learned something valuable. That day, empty hands had built human civilization. Empty hands had climbed from caves to starships. Empty hands had survived everything Earth could throw at them and still reached for the stars. Those same empty hands had just broken the ribs of the galaxy's supposedly unbeatable champion. The irony was not lost on anyone, least of all the humans, who found the whole situation absolutely music hilarious and immediately started selling merchandise that said empty hands, full results in 7,000 languages. Because if there was one thing humans loved more than proving music people wrong, it was making money off the experience. Afterward, the galaxy was still learning that lesson too.